Entiendo que podemos empezar ya. Buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por su asistencia a esta mesa redonda, a esta mesa de debate que tenemos después de la comida. Y tal y como me ha pedido la organización del evento, tengo que dar unos avisos a la audiencia. El primer aviso es que debido a las medidas adoptadas por el COVID, el aforo en las conferencias es limitado. Asimismo, es obligatorio el uso de mascarilla en el interior y se recomienda un lavado frecuente de manos. Respeten, por favor, los circuitos de entrada y salida y mantengan la distancia de seguridad recomendada de 1,5 metros. Por último, todos aquellos que marcaron la opción de asistencia a las demostraciones deben confirmarlo en los mostradores de entrada de la exposición. Muchas gracias. Bien, esta mesa redonda, mesa de debate que tenemos a continuación, que trata sobre la seguridad, tiene intervinientes que no son españoles y, por tanto, la mesa va a desarrollarse mayoritariamente en inglés. Alguna intervención se hará en español, pero la mayoría de las intervenciones van a ser en inglés y, por tanto, me he permitido preparar una breve introducción a la temática de la mesa, asimismo también en lengua inglesa, que, bueno, como tampoco soy una bilingüe en inglés, desafortunadamente, que me encantaría, pues voy a pasar a leer para introducir un poco la temática y un poco dar mi punto de vista como moderadora en este tema. Así que, good afternoon everyone, and thank you very much for attending the roundtable entitled The Safety Concept, Pillar of Development. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Cristina Cuerno Rejado. I am full professor of aircraft design at the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, and at the same time I am the director of the Faculty of Aerospace Engineering at the same university. But on the other side, I also work in the sector. I am member of the board of the Spanish Air Accident Investigation Commission. So it's very clear in my background that safety for me is the best thing and the more important thing in aviation. It's a known fact throughout the world that aviation is a safety means of transport, and it's characteristic of safety that has allowed to achieve such an enormous development in the few more than 100 years that aviation has been present. Aware of the importance of safety for this activity, aeronautical activities are characterized by operating in an extremely demanding framework to prevent safety levels from falling and accident rates from increasing. The entire sector is aware of the impact that aviation accidents have on the public opinion. We have no possible comparison with other accidents involving other means of transport, although the number of victims and accidents each year is incomparably higher than aviation. Well, we must keep this subject very clear for the development of this new form of aviation that we are witnessing. I believe that it is not necessary to clarify that what negative effect will have on the unmanned aerial sector an accident with fatalities in which one of these aircraft were involved, and what will mean a setback in the development of new applications, as interesting as unmanned commercial transport, for instance. For this reason, the title of this table is a leitmotif that we have the obligation to keep marked in our minds and in every one of the activities that we carry out. This is the basis of the development of UAS's safety. In order to deepen on this fundamental issue, the roundtable will include the participation of representatives from the civil aviation authorities, both at EU level, which is, for instance, our participant from EASA, and at the level of the member states, for we have experts from 2 civil aviation authorities from 2 member states. On the other hand, we have to analyze safety from the point of view of the interested parties, and for this reason we will have the participation of a large international operator, and also a company that works in the field of operation and safety. Then, therefore, I'm going to introduce the members of the roundtable one by one, to whom I will give the opportunity to present their approach on the debate table. After all the intervention, we have time for dedicated to discussion with questions for the attendees or even from myself. So let's start. In the first position, we have the participation of Nathalie Di Rubo from the European Aviation Safety Agency, EASA. Nathalie Di Rubo is an EASA drone project manager. Since 2016, he is the regulator office responsible for the drone regulation. He coordinated the development of the drone regulation for operations in the open and the specific category in the EU. Previously, he was a regulation officer for Initial Airworthiness Part 21. Please, Natalie, when you want. You ready?
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you also for allowing me to speak in English. Me gusta mucho el español, pero no lo hablo bien. So I prefer now to have my presentation in English. So it's very nice that you organize this conference regarding safety, because as said by the introduction, yes, safety is an important pillar and is the main driver that we used in order to develop the new European regulation. So I have a few slides to pass my message. So I will share now my screen. Okay. Okay, so I hope that you are able to see my screen. So you may be aware that since 31st December of last year, the new European regulation on drones has became applicable in all European member states, plus some additional states like Switzerland, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. So we have now one single way to enable safety on all drone operation, and also to ensure that the market in the European Union. So this is quite an important step, since now we have the same elements that are applicable in Europe. And the first pillar of the regulation is the registration of drone operators. So you know that we don't require the registration of single drones unless the drone is certified, but then we require that all drone operators, except when they are using a very small drone, so below 250 grams without a camera, or even if with a camera, but they are toys. So this is the only exception. In all other cases, the drone operator are always required to be registered in one member state, and then this registration will be valid in all other member states. Actually, the drone operator cannot register in more than one state. And then once the registration has been completed, the operator will be recognized by the authority of the state where they are registered. And when they want to develop operation in the specific category for which they need to have an operation authorization, they will always apply to that competent authority. And this is an important element of this for the safety, because the operation authorization and then also the other certificates that the operator will require under this regulation are a sort of trust between the operator and the competent authority. So the operator is allowed to organize their operation in the best way he wants to propose, but to show that it's safe. So it needs to have this kind of trust with the competent authority. So even if when the operator wants to conduct an operation in a state different from the member state of registration, first you need to ask the authorization to the member state where it's registered, and then there is a process for allowing what we call the cross-border operation, so to be recognized outside of the state. And also for the remote pilot certificate, so we have now an harmonization of the requirement such that the remote pilot can be trained and do the exam in one of the member states, and then this training and exam will be recognized by all the other states without any additional evidence. So we think that it is quite powerful, but I would like to discuss a little bit on what are the big difference between this regulation and the previous one. So far in the manned aviation, we were used to approach safety by assessing the three elements that makes an operation safe, that are the design of the drone, the competence of the operator, and the competence of the pilot, to address more or less in a similar way. So because having a pilot on board, sometimes also some passengers, then we need to protect the life of these people. So we were always making sure that all these three elements are set at quite high standard, and then this will ensure safety. and then the cost is proportionate to these higher requirements that we have for design, for operator, and for license. This is, as you can see, it can be a quite simple approach, but we decided for drone, we to change the picture. So this is the picture now, where is the operator that can carry out the risk assessment and can identify how better organize their operation, defining based on the risk where he is conducting the operation. So since we don't have a pilot on board, since we may have an operation in an area where also the air risk and the ground risk may be reduced, so in this case, maybe we don't need to have a full drone certified. Or maybe we may decide to use a drone where the level of automation is very high, for which then we don't need to have a high competence for the remote pilot. Or on the other side, we may have a cheaper drone where then the level of interaction between the pilot and the drone will be higher, and then the training of the remote pilot will be larger. So while ensuring that always the same level of safety for the third party that is on ground, that is on air, here now with this new approach is that the operator that is the main character now that can propose to the competent authority the better way to have the operation, a safe operation at the best cost for him. So this is why now the information regarding how to protect the safety of the third party that is overflown or other third party on air needs to be ensured. So we are conducting a number of safety promotion activities where we tried first of all to identify the audience. So we know that in this domain now we have new actors. We are not now dealing with the normal aviation industry. We have also, in some cases, the intervention of some hobbyists, so that then also we need to consider. And so we need to make sure that we use a language that can be easily understandable, but also by this new actor. So here we developed a number of new material, and we are trying to support the member states. And also, for example, this conference is one of the key elements where we are trying to make evident to all the operator how safety is important, but on the other side, so how the regulation allows you to have a margin of maneuver. So please check also our website where there are several information, and we have also videos, and we have other kind of material that we published in order to understand how you can make the operation safe. And then we also encourage a dialogue between the competent authority and all the operator in order to negotiate the way the operation will be carried out by showing how the risk assessment has been carried out by the operator. To give you some information now on what are the next activities that we are going to provide here from EASA. So regarding the open category, so at this moment, we believe that all the regulatory provision has been provided, and also mostly of the acceptable means of compliance are already included in our regulation. So we don't think that there is much more to do now. Is just to inform the operator. While instead in the other domain, there are still work to do. So for this specific category, we would like to provide additional guidance to the member state and to the operator on how to conduct risk assessment. And also we would like to develop additional scenarios that will simplify the operational approval by the competent authority by publishing on our website what we call the predefined risk assessment, that are scenarios where EASA carry out risk assessment, identify what are the requirements, and then the operator just need to comply with your elements and send the application to the competent authority. Here now we will publish an MPA that should be ready in the next couple of weeks, where we are going to provide some new guidance, especially for the specific category, like for the training in the specific category, for the form, how to apply for the operation authorization, and something more. But we think that we need to develop something more flexible. So we will publish in the next year what here I call the guidelines. So will be a document that will be published on our website for now at this moment for information only, where we will update all the lessons learned that we are receiving from you, also the results of any potential accident investigation, even if it will be preliminary. But we would like to give already information as soon as possible to all the stakeholders, in order to already improve as much as possible the safety level. And then when this information will be mature enough, then we will transform from guidelines on normal our rulemaking activity to the decision to updating our MCGM. But here this will be an important element to ensure safety, to ensure that we take the lesson learned from the field. Then you may know that for the use space, the regulation has been adopted now since 2 months, and we are finalizing the notice of proposed amendment to provide the MC, so character means of compliance, and guidance material in support of all the elements of the use space. And this MPA will be published by the end of this year. Then there will be a normal 3 months consultation, and so we expect the decision will be more or less 1 year later. And regarding instead the certified category, I don't know who of you are involved in the several task force that we started here in EASA with the support of several industries. So we are planning to develop a proposal by beginning of next year, and this proposal at this moment will only address what we call operation specific category high risk. What do we mean? We mean that at this moment, most of the operations that are carried out in Europe is, for those that are familiar to SORA, is up to SAIL 4, that is considered a medium risk. So for which we are not required to have a assembly type certificate of drone according to Part 21, like we're asking for the non-manned aviation. Instead, when the operation will have a higher risk, so we call high risk, so SAIL 5 and 6, for those that are more familiar to SORA, then we are going to ask a type certificate according to Part 21, and so we need to make some adjustment to the Part 21 to accommodate some peculiarities. But we will also address the operation for the urban air mobility, aerotaxi. Now, in the first phase, we don't expect that the aerotaxi will be with drones. So the first phase will be aerotaxi with still a pilot on board. So with this first proposal, we are going to amend all the manned aviation regulations that are needed to be amended in order to accommodate aerotaxi with pilot on board. And then the opinion with the actual proposal of regulation will be 1 year later. Instead, in the second phase, this is the MPA number 2 that you have at the bottom of the screen, we are going to address, first of all, the urban air mobility that are conducted at this moment now with drones, so without a pilot on board, and also what we call the type 1 operation in certified category. This means that will be the international IFR flights, like for example, a cargo flight that are departing from Madrid and landing in New York. So also this one will be addressed in this MPA number 2 that will be provided sometime in mid of 2023 with the opinion 1 year later. So this is how we will address the next challenge in the future. I'm now here available for questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Natale. We are now moving to the next speaker. This is Juan José Sola from Agencia Estatal de Seguridad Aérea, the Civil Aviation Authority in Spain, AESA. Juan José Sola is head of the UAS division at AESA. He is responsible for the authorization and rating of US operators, supervision and oversight of managed aerial system operators, and training organizations, and also the rulemaking initiative. Before this position, he had been involved in different roles in the airports and air navigation sector. Whenever you want.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cristina. And first of all, I hope all of you are keeping safe and well. And I think it could be better for the audience to go ahead with my presentation in Spanish. I apologize, Fabio and Natale. Actually, I'm sure that your Spanish is better than my English. But in any case, I don't mind translating into English whatever you need. Muchas gracias. Mi presentación también va a ser relativamente reducida y en primer lugar quiero agradecer a la organización y a la iniciativa de UNVEX que nos hayan invitado. Para nosotros es un placer estar aquí y compartir con todos vosotros pues, nuestra experiencia también y aprender de todo el sector, ¿no? En primer lugar, lo que quería hacer con mi presentación es simplemente mostrar una fotografía del sector actual que tenemos en España, que será muy similar a lo que hay en otros países de la Unión Europea. Y lo que podéis ver en la parte izquierda de aquí son los datos actuales tanto de registro de operadores como de pilotos formados en categoría abierta y específica actualmente en España. Como podéis ver, las cifras de operadores superan las 30.000 registrados y los pilotos superan los 40.000, ¿no? 41.000 y pico. Comparado con las cifras que tenemos aquí de lo que teníamos con el anterior Real Decreto, la norma nacional, pues quedan muy minimizados en tanto en cuanto llevamos tan solo pues, 6 meses de normativa, ¿no? Es verdad que al poder abarcar tanto la operación lúdica o recreativa como la profesional, pues estas cifras se ven mayoradas, pero es cierto que el cambio normativo ha impulsado el sector de manera clara. Y arriba podéis ver una pequeña estimación que hemos hecho a los datos que podríamos llegar en un futuro no muy lejano. Estamos hablando de que en 4 años, 5, estaríamos cerca de las decenas de miles, tanto de operadores como de pilotos. Y en esa fotografía que estamos haciendo en España, en ese contexto europeo, es donde realmente tenemos que movernos. Siguiendo viendo un poco las cifras, nos encontramos con que tenemos muchas operaciones en el aspecto declarativo, aspecto nacional. Tenemos 2 escenarios estándar publicados que, como sabéis, hacen alusión a esa parte de la categoría específica en la cual el operador declara que va a hacer un tipo de operación y por tanto la hace y no le requiere una autorización operacional. Podéis ver las cifras junto con aquellas que conforman las organizaciones que dan esa formación. Pues podéis ver que nos movemos en unas 1.500 para el primer escenario que permite los vuelos en entorno urbano, aunque en una zona terrestre controlada, y pues nos movemos en torno a los 700, es que estas cifras van cambiando, para el VU veloz de hasta 2 kilómetros con observador. Y luego las organizaciones pues van ya por pues más de 150 organizaciones que pueden dar esta formación. Solicitud de autorización, pues también hemos recibido pues ya por cerca de 150, y también de los que son los certificados de operador aéreo ligero y operaciones transfronterizas. Ya algunas de ellas pues también autorizadas tanto a nivel nacional como de operadores que han venido de otros países de la Unión Europea. Aeronaves, ligadas a estos escenarios estándar, pues ya veis que también nos encontramos en una cifra relativamente alta, ¿no? Ya suman unas 3.000 aeronaves. Y por último, las cifras de pilotos desglosadas por las subcategorías pues se mueven en un entorno muy alto, ¿no? Sobre todo lo que es la categoría de menor riesgo, la subcategoría de menor riesgo, perdón, que son la 1 y la 3, cerca de 20.000, subcategoría 2 se mueven 6.700 y los teóricos y los prácticos de los escenarios estándar pues en cifras que rondan los 4.400 y ya diría que 2.000 pilotos que se han formado de esta manera, ¿no? Pues como decía, en ese contexto tienes que cambiar totalmente el enfoque como autoridad, no te puedes mover por los mecanismos clásicos de la aviación, de cómo interpretabas la relación que tiene la autoridad con el administrado o con el aviador, ¿no? Y tienes que primero focalizar tu marco normativo a la realidad de la Unión Europea, y lo primero que se decidió desde la agencia era derogar la normativa, derogar la normativa actual para hacer una vamos a decir, ad hoc o que sea específica muy centrada en la norma europea, que básicamente, como sabéis, es una normativa orientada al riesgo, proporcional, basada en la performance y demás. También, una obviedad, hay que digitalizar todos los procesos. Con esas cifras es imposible gestionar de manera, vamos a decir, clásica, manual, papel, todos esos procesos, y tienes que automatizar todo lo que se puede. La aviación no tripulada tiende a automatizarse, tienes que automatizar también los procesos de la autoridad. También tenemos que llegar a un punto en el cual esa flexibilidad también se traduzca en una armonización, porque las normas flexibles pueden llegar al error de que no se armonice, ¿no? Y como digo, estamos en un entorno europeo y es fundamental que exista esa armonización, y es un trabajo que estamos haciendo. Ahora os contaré algún detalle más con nuestros compañeros como Fabio en ANAC, pero también con el resto de autoridades y con EASA, por supuesto. Y la coordinación y la cooperación con otros agentes o con varios agentes ha llegado a un punto en el cual prácticamente tienes que coordinar con todo el mundo, ¿no? Porque en la aviación clásica coordinabas sobre todo con proveedores de servicios de navegación aérea, gestores aeroportuarios, por supuesto con fuerzas y cuerpos de seguridad, que cada vez tienes que coordinar más, pero por supuesto tienes que coordinar con la administración local, la administración autonómica o la administración regional, según en el país que te encuentres, y con otros muchos agentes, ¿no? Y al final es un poco reflejo de lo que estamos viendo aquí en UNVEX, ¿no? Vemos que hay actores de todo tipo, porque esto es un negocio que afecta prácticamente a toda la sociedad. ¿Cómo hemos hecho la implementación nacional? Bueno, lo primero es adaptarnos a la norma europea con las herramientas que tenemos ahora. Pero como digo, las herramientas que tenemos ahora no son suficientes, hay que regular de verdad, y para ello en España se hace, generalmente la administración regula vía Real Decreto. Entonces, en el borrador de Real Decreto, que ya pasó a audiencia pública y que ya está prácticamente madurado técnicamente, pues nos vamos a encontrar con aspectos que sí quedan a los estados, ¿no? Hay que modificar la ley de navegación aérea, por lo que os decía, ¿no? ¿Cuál es el concepto de aeronave? Ahora la aeronave no es tripulada, pero no solo no tripulada, sino que el piloto puede no existir, es autónoma. Eso hay que modificarlo, hay que ajustarlo. Tenemos edades mínimas de los pilotos, hay que también ajustar esa realidad, ¿no? Depende del riesgo, tendrás pilotos con una edad o con otra. También tendrás que acometer los seguros, ¿no? Porque los requisitos de seguro que hay actualmente para aviación pues pueden ser a lo mejor sobredimensionados para las subcategorías de menor riesgo, ¿no? Y nos encontramos con otros aspectos fundamentales, lo que llaman las zonas geográficas, o como se dice también zonificación, geographical zones, que dice el reglamento europeo, es cómo los estados quieren poner o no las condiciones de vuelo en sus volúmenes de espacio aéreo. ¿Dónde queremos que los drones vuelen? ¿Dónde no queremos que vuelen? Y dónde vuelen, con qué condiciones queremos que vuelen. Y eso también hay que regularlo, por supuesto. Pues nos encontramos también con requisitos de operadores, ciertas reglas del aire, aunque por supuesto siempre cumpliendo con la normativa comunitaria, y nos encontramos con aspectos tan básicos como temas que quedan para la formación de pilotos, que se le piden a ciertas organizaciones, convertir todos los certificados, porque aunque las cifras, como veis, son menores, veníamos de cifras de miles de operadores, de miles de pilotos, todo eso hay que convertirlo a la normativa europea. Y por supuesto tenemos también una parte muy importante que es el aeromodelismo y las demostraciones aéreas, que en España tiene una actividad importante, que por supuesto también tienen que tener su cabida y en la que respetamos por supuesto y queremos que siga siendo así, ¿no? Y por último, por supuesto, esto afecta a la seguridad ciudadana, a los aspectos de seguridad física o security, y también este borrador de Real Decreto cuenta con la participación de fuerzas y cuerpos de seguridad, por supuesto Ministerio del Interior, las policías autonómicas y demás, que también han aportado, incluido las policías locales, ¿no? Que ellos son, al fin y al cabo, los que estarán a pie de obra, también velando por que se cumpla toda la normativa. Y ya casi para terminar, porque así lo hemos visto interesante en este foro que es bastante internacional, hay un aspecto fundamental que son lo que se llaman las cross-border operations o las operaciones transfronterizas. ¿Qué pasa si un operador tiene una autorización, porque si está en categoría abierta, evidentemente simplemente cruza y opera, ¿no? Pero si tiene una autorización en otro país, ¿qué se le pide cuando llega a otro Estado miembro, ¿no? La realidad es que la norma es clara, ¿no? La norma te viene a decir que la autoridad no puede reevaluar la autorización, está bien emitida, está emitida con respecto a la norma, pero tiene que tener en cuenta consideraciones locales. ¿Cómo evalúas esas condiciones locales? Bueno, esto es una forma muy esquemática, pero creo que es bastante clara de ver. que lo primero, bueno, hay que evaluar unos requisitos generales, si esa autorización pues está completa, está toda la documentación y demás, que lo tenéis ahí, los datos del operador, pero luego hay 3 aspectos fundamentales, que es lo que le queda a los estados, ¿no? Nadie juzga o nadie evalúa, reevalúa ese estudio de seguridad o las bases de esa autorización, pero sí la zonificación, esas zonas geográficas sí que tienen mucho que ver cómo funciona el espacio aéreo en cada estado, ¿no? Pues se evalúan pues, si hay que segregar el espacio aéreo, qué pasa con las zonas prohibidas, las zonas peligrosas, todo eso tiene que verse, ¿no? Y bueno, por supuesto, pues todo lo que son infraestructuras críticas desde el punto de vista de la defensa nacional y demás. Luego hay una parte importante desde el punto de vista del propio sistema, de la plataforma, pues no entras a evaluar los requisitos de esa plataforma, pero sí tienes que entrar a ver pues si esa operación se puede llevar a cabo en tu estado de manera segura. Es verdad que hoy día las plataformas tienen unos márgenes de operación muy amplios, pero bueno, hay que tener en cuenta que a lo mejor en Finlandia pues la meteorología o el clima no es el mismo que el que tenemos aquí, todo eso hay que tenerlo en cuenta. Y por último, las siglas de RP, de Plan de Respuesta a la Emergencia, pues tiene una vertiente muy nacional, porque la forma de gestionar las emergencias o de coordinarlo, pues depende mucho de cómo se enfoque en cada estado. Y esto es básicamente lo que nosotros miraríamos, o lo que otro estado miraría, si le llegara una operación transfronteriza. Y ya para terminar, y al hilo con lo que ha comentado Natale, ¿qué estamos haciendo en EASA desde el punto de vista del safety promotion, de la promoción de la seguridad, o de cualquier actividad que de alguna forma mejore el sistema y lo haga más eficiente? Bueno, podéis ver un poco en esta noria que hemos pintado aquí, un poco a la izquierda, pues los grupos de trabajo en los que estamos, algunos os sonarán, como Yarus y demás, o la propia OACI. También NARIC es una iniciativa muy interesante, porque es una iniciativa que se ha creado para los Estados miembros, un poco para ver cómo implementábamos la norma a nivel europeo, y podéis ver todo eso de ahí, pero también a la derecha podéis ver pues, que tenemos que hacer jornadas de divulgación, que tenemos también que actualizar nuestra web, que tenemos que hacer vídeos que sean suficientemente buenos, como ha explicado Natale, para que el usuario de a pie pues, pueda entender los procesos. También estamos intentando una coordinación que es francamente buena con fuerzas y cuerpos de seguridad, y toda la parte de consultas, de atención al ciudadano, que está siendo muy compleja por el volumen tan alto que tenemos, y estamos incluso ya trabajando en sistemas que digitalicen y automaticen esa respuesta, como podéis ver ahí, como los chatbots o otros sistemas que sí que están implantados en otras organizaciones. Y nada más, espero haberme ajustado al tiempo, y como siempre decimos, lo primero es la seguridad, y muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Juanjo. And now it's time for our next speaker, who came from the Portuguese Civil Aviation Authority, ANAC. It's Fabio Camacho. Fabio Camacho is head of the UAS department at the Portuguese Civil Aviation Authority, ANAC. In this role, he is responsible for implementing regulations and national rulemaking, developing guidance and providing expertise in UAS-related policies at national level. He is the ANAC representative of UAS and EU Space Matters on international working groups. Fabio has a strong air traffic control and flight operation background. He worked as an air traffic controller, flight operations officer, and ATM NAS coordinator auditor. Fabio joined ANAC in 2018. Please, Fabio, whenever you want.
Hello, thank you. First of all, apologize for the presentation in English, but I'm not comfortable to try it in Spanish. Just want to avoid any misunderstanding. Additionally, thank you UNVEX for the invitation. It's a wonderful event, and I wish you success for the future. So I prepared here a little presentation just to speak specifically about 2 important points that were talked by Natale and by Juan. One of them is the cross-border. The second one is the harmonization of the rules. I think that most of the operators are thinking specifically on that, because there are direct impacts in the life of the operators. What I want to explore here is specifically how to achieve safety in a perspective of a cross-border operation. You note that the authorizations in the specific category, they need to be accepted by the other states. So we can say that there are 3 products in specific category. That is the declaration and the confirmation of receipt of a declaration, the STS, issued as per the Appendix 1. Could also be accepted standard scenarios that are still in force, national standard scenarios, but needs to be accepted by the authority of the country of operation. So what is expected is that you will apply for an STS, you will comply with the operating limitations of the STS, and you should receive confirmation of receipt and completeness of the standard scenario. Then you just need, as an operator and as responsible by the operation itself, you need to ensure the competency of the remote pilots, you need to develop the procedures, you need to acquire the correct unmanned aircraft system. If it's STS-01, should be labeled as a C5, C05, if STS-02, a C6. Then we have the product that is the operational authorization itself, so SORA based. So you will apply the SORA methodology, you will identify the OSOs, you will see if you need to have an ACID step 9 and so on. You will create your portfolio with OSOs, you will populate it, and you will achieve the assurance needed for the level of integrity. That assurance will be provided to the competent authority to approve or not. Still, the competent authority may impose additional conditions that regard competency and also include limitations, of course. The third product will be the look. So the look, it's based also in, as Natalie said, in a level of trust that needs to be created between the operator and the authority. So this means that if you are applying, so you apply it for a SORA authorization 3 or 4 times, you were able to successfully identify the OSOs and apply it at OSOs. So we can say that the application is correct. We do not need to add additional mitigations because they are already identified by the operator. We can say that the level of competency of the operator is higher. So we create the trust, and in a certain point we may say that the operator will reach a level that is ready to request a look for the competent authority. So the competent authority will define some privileges. So there are privileges to be used by the look holder. And of course these privileges will also have an impact when they apply for a cross-border. So we talked shortly about the process, the flow of authorization and get the product in specific category. Let's see what will happen if you intend to operate in another country. So basically, if you have ASTS, this means that you are complying strictly with the rules that are published in the STS, point by point. So what is expected is that, okay, as an operator, you are responsible to check the geozones of that country. EASA have a list of all national aviation competent authorities. You can consult the website, you can see the safety promotion and information about the local conditions. The local conditions, of course, will include the geozones. So you need to be prepared to identify what are the places that you can use the confirmation of receipt of the standard scenario. You identify a place, you send the declaration and that confirmation to the competent authority, and you are ready to go. The other product that of course will be more complex will be the operational authorization, because with the operational authorization what you are doing is basically, so I was approved for a specific location. So when I'm saying here specific location, but can also be generic. But the intention is that you will choose a place where you can use your mitigations that were included in the authorization. So it's a place in the ground, and of course you need to consider the ground risk and the air risk, but it's a place where your mitigations are okay, because they are complying with sail level and with the OSOs, okay, in the level of robustness specifically for that place. When, of course, you are changing of country, what you need to think is that you basically you are using your operational volume that was defined for that authorization, and you are putting that volume in another country. So there are things that could be different. There are two things that need to be considered. The first one, of course, is if you are able to find a suitable place where, for example, the initial ground risk classification, the initial ARC are the same, so the sale will be the same. So if you are able to identify a suitable place, probably the local conditions will be more like country specific, like the geozones. So it will be a simpler process. But imagine, in the other hand, if you intend to, okay, I have this authorization, it was prepared for a sale too, but I want to go to another country, but there is something in that specific place or specific location where the air risk is higher or the ground risk is higher. You can have an impact in your final sale level, right? The GRC could be different, so you are, for example, using the same method that you use in Spain to calculate the, let's say, populated place, and in Portugal can be a little bit different. It can be more in terms of quantification of the number of persons per square meter or square kilometer, sorry. Or can be more qualitative, so a qualitative way to assess if a location is populated or not. So you need to be able to capture all these little differences and propose mitigations. So if the risk increase, if the things change, you need to be able to go to the authority website, find what are the specific risks of that location, by identifying the local conditions. You need to do an assessment, the so-called risk assessment that is in Article 13. If your mitigations are accepted by the competent authority of the country of operation, so imagine that is Portugal, what we should do if all it's okay, it's just to confirm you that you are ready and you can start immediately to operate. So assuming that no additional mitigations are needed. If additional mitigations are needed, okay, so imagine that there is a thing in the air risk that was not considered and an additional mitigation is needed. There is a negotiation, of course, between the two parties, and in case we approve it with additional mitigation, the flow that is expected is confirm the operator that is ready and he can start immediately the operation without undue delay. Secondly, advise the competent authority of the country of registration. So, two bullets here. One, for cross-border operations using operational authorization. Find what are the local conditions. Secondly, try to match the places where you want to operate with the authorization that you have already. So matching the GRC and ARC to facilitate your life. Then, of course, each country have their own rules, internal rules. There are some differences, and you are able to capture that differences in the authority website. The second bullet is, if you, of course, you change a lot the GRC or the ARC, you can go to sale 3, 4, and need a design assessment report. So this means that it's important to know well the methodology that you are using. For the look, it's based in the privilege. So you have a safety management system implemented. You have lots of tools implemented. For example, the just culture, it's implemented. You are able to identify the risks. You are able to think about the mitigations to introduce to lower the risk. So you have all these tools, and when you receive the look, what the authority is assuming is that, okay, you are capable to do it. So most probably in your look you will be able to approve your own operations until a certain level. If you go to another country, since the rules are harmonized, what is expected is that that you, of course, will apply, because the Article 13 says that you need to apply. You will define the local, and you need to conduct the local risk assessment. It's not, of course, run SORA from scratch. It's the same as applicable in operational authorization. You will only identify the differences and mitigate the differences. The big difference to the operational authorization is that in LUC you are approving the own operations. So we trust that your assessment is okay. We will negotiate with the LUC holder, of course. You need to also we need to cross information always. And then if all is okay, you can start your operation. So this is the basis of Article 13 for the cross-border. So I like normally to use this pyramid. I will say that is the cross-border pyramid, because I think that in terms of safety, the main goals are included here. So the first one is to know well the regulation and your concept of operations. If you have some doubts in your concept of operations, and if you do not know well the regulation, if you do not know well the Regulation 13 and what are the objectives of Article 13, you can face, of course, some difficulties to choose the right procedure to apply for a cross-border, and also identify and mitigate the risks. So, know well the regulation, mitigations, the limitations that can be included in your operational authorizations, and also the privileges if you are using the LUC. The second step, again, safety promotion. So, we talked already of safety promotion. EASA, it's putting a lot of efforts in safety promotion. The competent authorities too, okay? And this is important to provide you the tools to easily identify what are the local rules. So, after you obtaining all this information, will include, of course, the geozones. That is a key part of this process. You should be competent. Competency in the risk assessment methodology is very important. And based also in experience, we see, but we must admit that is normal. This is the first year. The regulation is in force since 1 of January of this year. So it's normal that we see that competency in the methodology will increase. But it's important to spend some resources to understand how to do it. If not, you will face problems, for example, to identify the correct way to mitigate, or even identify the risks. So you cannot have like any point left behind, especially when you are dealing with local conditions. Assuming that all 3 elements are okay, you will ask the following. If this operational safety is achieved when you apply for the cross-border. If yes, you are okay. So you have done your best, you identified the risks, you negotiated the things with the country of operation, and there is nothing to block, there is no blockers. If there is a problem and you say, okay, probably I'm not comfortable with this part, I have some difficulties here to identify the local conditions, or I do not understand a specific point of the regulation, it's better to, again, consult the information and repeat the process until you are comfortable and ready to do it. Okay, do not rush. So, I will pass for the other slide. So this was the process that ANAC implemented to ensure that we have the local conditions published in a simple manner to be used by the operators. We put a lot of efforts to organize our website and put the main topics point by point. So rules, open category, specific category, cross-border operations, just to facilitate, because we didn't want to scatter the information about in one web page and create more confusion. So for those that want to do a cross-border operation in Portugal, they have a dedicated place. So you can see at left, you can see that we have a place, a source of information. We included also information for the category, open category operators. It's not a cross-border, okay, because the regulation allows the open category freely, but you have a way to consult information. Then the local conditions, and local conditions we specify local conditions for the population, for the climatic, for airspace, so it's point by point. You have the geozones, and you also have the procedure to apply. Of course, for the open category, will not be a cross-border operation because the certificates of competency are recognized, this is harmonized, so they are immediately accepted. What is the impact? The impact is that you can go to a country and start immediately an operation if you avoid the geographical zones. So you need to read the geographical zones. There are some specific requirements but easy to achieve, so you are able to cover it quite easy, and you can start immediately the operation. In the cross-border subpage, we included a chapter specifically for the open category operators. So you just need to read the information and you know where you can operate or not. Additionally, we published some case studies, and the case study gives you, for example, in an operational perspective, since in the open category, in terms of operation, you achieve the safety by complying with the operational limitations that are in Part A. What we have done is basically read the Part A and choose 8 or 9 different locals, and we identified what is the subcategory that you need to apply in that place, taking into account our knowledge about local, right? And of course we pass information about the drone to be used, the subcategory, and the certificate of competency that you need to have, a proof of completion of online training or competency certificates on the A2. So one thing that also it's important, it's the accident and incident report. For those aircrafts, or for those flying machines that you do not need a certificate or a declaration, you do not need to apply the 376/2014, that is the occurrence reporting regulation, let's say. But in case during your operation one of the following events occurs, you need to report. So a fatality or a serious injury in a person, or when you involve a manned aircraft. So when you have this event, this needs to be reported always. Additionally, in the specific category, there is the possibility to the competent authority impose some requirements, specific requirements to report. For example, we can choose that if you have a critical failure in your systems, you need to report. This is an example. So this will be defined at the competent authority discretion, taking into account your concept of operations and the technical means to be used, the drone. For those that will use the certified unmanned aircraft system, so restricted type certificate or a type certificate, the occurrence report regulation is fully applicable, including the list that is stated in 2015-1018. So this is a European regulation with stating what are the mandatory events to be reported. There are some things that can be applicable, others not, but of course the competent authority can specify and provide more information. So in terms of reports, in case of an incident, even if you are in a cross-border operation, you should report. you have two options. You have the mandatory ones. We already saw what are the mandatories. And you also have the voluntary. So this regulation 376/2014 allows these two possibilities. And normally the procedure to report is the same. It's used in Europe. And you can have some local conditions about this. So the procedure to report can also be implemented in a different way in the States, not in terms of the tool, because the web tool is the same. It's based in eCars 2. So it's the report website. But for the voluntary report, we can allow other systems of report. And in Portugal, we implemented in the beginning of this year these two informations. So it's circular information. It's published in our website, explaining what are the report, the process to report. If anything, for example, occurs in Portugal, what you should do is do not be afraid and try always to report. And my suggestion is also to do it in all Europe. So because with that information, we can improve the system. Well, thank you.
Now we have to change, please, the new two speakers. Fabio, please, and then... Okay, thank you very much. Okay, while there is some cleaning actions now, I introduce the next speaker. Is Marta Cejuela Martín from Flying Basket. Marta Cejuela is the safety manager at Flying Basket. She manages the SMS and oversees all the organization activities and is responsible to ensure that Flying Basket operational safety requirements comply with the US regulations and that the requirements are met and adhered to. She is the Flying Basket representative in several international working groups related to UAS matters. Marta has a strong background on initial and continuing worthiness, safety risk management, and regulatory compliance of civil and defense aviation regulation. Worldwide experience, previously working at Airbus DS and Mitsubishi Aircraft Corporation. Please, Marta.
Gracias a todos, aunque no sé hablar tampoco español. Como soy un operador internacional y fabricante, he decidido que hacer la ponencia en inglés, también por Natalia y por Fabio, así que procederé a hablar en inglés. Muchas gracias a la organización por hacer posible esta promoción de safety y crear esta mesa y a todos los ponentes que han decidido venir. So I would like to start my presentation to share, we can say it a failure or not, I don't know what to say, but I'm absolutely sure that all of us in the industry have one incident, at least one, or maybe two, I'm not sure. So this was my present, my welcome present in my company 1 year ago. We have had this incident. The drone, the US, was hovering and fall down from 45 meters. We lost the thrust, the lift, because the 8 motor stop it and fall down directly. So, but anyway, also as Fabio explained it, this incident we don't need to report. We can keep our mouth, said we were in sparsely populated in the Alps, nobody knows, and said, okay, just repair, retrofit the drone, and nobody knows. But instead of this behavior, we decided to report to the authorities because we think that this behavior could do that improve the safety for sure in the industry, and because we think that it's so nice to have and to enhance this industry and promote the safety. So in this case, we have not to report, but in case that you have a serious incident and an accident, I give you this link where in the in casa in Spanish, you can check there what is the country that in the incident or accident occur. You just click. In this case, I choose Spain, and then this will appear all the data when this accident occurred. You have 60 minutes to report this accident or serious incident. the same like in the general aviation. And the other thing is like we decided to do, we have, instead to mandatory, we decided to do voluntary. And then IASA give you also the option, as Fabio explained it to you before, to do as organization or on behalf of personal, because you decided that something was wrong and you decided to encourage to do it. This was the same. I explained you also here that you can choose in the country what's occur and what is the CAA and just do it. Why we decided to report? Well, in this case, it's because we decided to implement for sure in organization the SMS and to be not just reactive way, proactive way. Why? Because in this case, sometimes you have common equipment, an example. Here was the autopilot. And then maybe I commit an error in my organization, or maybe, I don't know, was a misunderstanding with my supplier. But this supplier has also other customer, other platform, that, for example, could be another one. And then in this way, when I report and also tell to others that I have this problem, could also mitigate and avoid in the future another unsafe condition, and also mitigate a potential accident. Because maybe the same error or the same failure or the same failure fault that we have, in this case, could also help to the others. Other reason for sure is because we can look what is the gap that we have in the organization. So okay, sorry. So in this case, we also could improve and enhance our organization for sure, because we can isolate the weakness in the organization and for sure encourage, in our case, our pilot or our employees, to take action before that this incident or serious incident, an accident occur. And for sure another way is always thanks to the accident. I don't like to say thanks, but it's true. We can for sure improve and the amendment of the regulation appear, okay, so in the framework. In the case of my organization, this is the way I want to share with you our experience. Our collective ambition for sure is to be a real commitment with the safety and continuously improve our organization, the safety performance, that we have really a just culture in the organization. And every single day, anything that occurs, because in our case, we are also a manufacturer, so this is the reason, this is the flow chart that we have in our organization. If something happened in the operation, because we are a new as operator, but also we use other manufacturers, as could be DJI, all of you know, for example, or in case that a maintenance even occur, or just a quality escape in the production, or any other things that could occur as in design, as design organization, and also any security event that could occur, always report. Never be afraid to report in your organization internally, because this is the only way to avoid, to collect event, to investigate, and then put a barrier to avoid this unsafe condition. So also, why not, in case that you change any operational things, or also a change in your organization, newcomer, or anyone key person that leaves the organization could also impact in safety. So it's so important always to have a safety committee, report, and look what occurred. And, but anyway, I want to share also the cross-border. We were the pioneer to do the cross-border operation. And anyway, also, 1 year ago occurred this incident, and we report. I encourage all of you to also do it, because don't be afraid. Not because you report any incident, that means that the authorities don't trust in you. This is the reason we, right now, are operating in 4 countries. So please do it, because just one media accident for all of us are impact. because the society take a threat of this new technology and could impact in all of us. So thank you for your time. I was short.
And finally, our last speaker is David Pérez Piñar López from Babcock. David joined Babcock in 2015, where currently he leads the UAS development area and the International Research Center on Advanced Autonomous Systems. He previously worked at the university in the research of control system, artificial intelligence, and robotics, and he has led several UAS projects in the past. Current activities involve the development of complete UAS solutions for real emergency operations, with a strong commitment on the application of the state-of-the-art technologies to achieve fully autonomous and intelligent systems. Please, David.
This presentation. I will also be brief, and I would like to start, well, you know, this is Lua, this is the system we are working with, and the system we are trying to use for mission critical operations, which is what Babcock does. I would like to start at the end, perhaps, which is safety first, but Marta told us that everybody told this here. But I would like to start talking about what is important in real operations. We in Babcock are experts in actual operations. I think many of you know that we do many hours of flights in firefighting, medical emergency services, and so on. That's the operation is the key to get a useful system, a useful service. And UAVs, UAS are new. They are new and they need to be safe. Everybody knows that, but we need to know the challenges we are facing, and we need to know what we need to solve. We are not doing UAVs for just flight. We are doing UAVs to solve problems. And those problems, in our case, are complex problems, are complex operations that involve not only an aircraft that is flying, perhaps several aircrafts in some kind of missions. Firefighting, for example, you can find 10, 20 helicopters at the same time flying in the same fire. But we need to get the concept of the UAS as a system which is inside a bigger operation. And that's pretty important because what you want to do is to fight the fire or to help somebody that has a problem, a medical problem or whatever. And that's what we are doing in our UAS strategy in Babcock. We don't get a UAS, an aircraft, and use it. We think what we need to do, what service we want to do, and we think what the UAS needs to have in order to safely provide that service. In mission critical operations in general, you have to deal with an emergency, of course. Everybody knows that the first thing to do in the emergency is to respond to the emergency. And I just want to give you some brief details on this because this applies also to UAS. When you are going to use a drone in an operation, this will apply also, perhaps with a lower level of complexity in some operations, or with a higher level of complexity. When you have an emergency, the pilot or the people that is working with the drone, with the UAS, needs to be focused on the emergency, and that's pretty important. And that has many consequences in how the system is and what requirements it has. In mission critical operations, you don't have information in advance in many cases about the location. The fire doesn't start where you want, it starts where it starts and when it starts. The environment is complex. We usually fly in very low levels, In many cases, such as the firefighting operations, the airspace is very congested. You can have many aircrafts flying at the same time, or you can have an emergency in a place where other aircrafts can be flying. So how does this apply to UAS? Well, you have to deal with the exact same challenges, and additionally, you need to handle a new resource, which is the UAS. The UAS will give you a lot of functionalities. Everybody here, I guess, has a lot of functionalities in mind to tell. It can firefight, it can transport, it can do everything. If you read the newspapers, you will think UAVs can do everything. No, they can't. But you need to take into account this new resource in the operation, and you need to integrate that new resource in your operation, and that is pretty important. A side note, I'm talking about emergency operations, which are very complex operations in general. But I think the specific ideas that I will tell now about our use cases are applicable to many other operations. They don't have to be very big fires or... Okay, so the next idea I want to transmit is that you need to understand what a UAS is. And I think this is kind of the same importance of safety. You need to be safe, but you need to understand what you have to do whatever you want to do. And that's why I have this kind of diagram here, because the UAS is not only the aircraft, it's not only a ground station with an aircraft, it's not only a pilot with a ground station with an aircraft. I have depicted here the aerial system, which is right now a ground station with mission control, auxiliary equipment, ground auxiliary equipment, the ground control station itself. You have one aircraft. Hopefully, in the near future, you will have several aircrafts controlled with one ground station and things more advanced. But you have also what I have included in this box, operation, which is a pilot, safety, and mission operator. This is people, and people work with procedures. So the UAS includes the people that works with the system and includes the procedures that people need to use to operate that system. And that means that you need to take into account also the instruction of those people and the maintenance of the system. And then you have technicians that need to maintain the system. So the system is all of this. And this system integrates in an operational environment. And the operational environment is where you are working. It's a fire or is whatever it is. And that makes you, imposes restrictions, problems, safety problems, operational problems. Sometimes you can't do what you want because the environment is not for you. You cannot do that with your system. And what I would like to highlight is that the operational environment has a lot of weight in this. And the architecture that I have shown is as important as the aircraft itself. Okay, so safety is not just a reliable aircraft. It's a reliable aircraft with a trained pilot, with a trained mechanical engineer or mechanical technician that maintains the system with the procedures. It's a lot of things at the same time. So this is our view of the UAS, and all of these elements need to be addressed in order to get a safe operation. Okay? Of course, as I told you before, this is different for complex operations. For simpler operations, you can have a simpler system with less requirements if the operation is not so complex. Okay, so I would like to highlight our two use cases. We are designing our system for firefighting, which is our primary operation. The UAV is meant to, in our final operation, I mean, not right now. We are also working with the authorities to have the authorizations that we need, and we work in a progressive way. We don't go to a big fire now because we need to assess the system, and we need to get the evidences that ourselves need to be sure that the system is safe. Okay? But our final goal is to have this system integrated in a mixed traffic airspace in firefighting. And the functionality that we want it to provide is to coordinate the aircrafts that are the water bombers, and to provide support to the ground crews that are fighting the fire. Okay. So in this case, I just wanted to highlight a few points that are important for safety, because we, as I explained before, I have tried to explain before, we need to consider everything. We need to consider the operation, what we want to do, and the system we are using to do that. For example, in a UAS, you have a ground system, you have a vehicle or whatever, a mobile system that gives you the ground control station, and the crew is there, is on ground. And when a fire starts, the fire is on ground. So you need to take care of the crew to provide a safe location for the crew. You need to have a system that can operate and can provide the information that is required for firefighting from that location, which means you need a minimum endurance, a minimum range. You need adequate ground equipment. You need to take into account that the fire can change, and the crew can perhaps need to go out fast. So your system needs to be easy to deploy, easy to take over. And of course, from the airspace point of view, that's more common. I think everyone here understands that you need to keep separation from other aircrafts. In our current system, we will be flying, when we have the authorization for that, we will be flying without other aircrafts around. We will have a TCA. But you need to take into account all these things. And our second use case is emergency medical services. This is a specific use case which we are working with 061, I don't know how to say that in English, with the emergency health services here in Galicia, for the transport and delivery of life-saving medical resources, in particular of defibrillators for the Camino de Santiago. Well, that's a very complex operation. In our case, we designed the system thinking in the first place on the operation, what we need to do, and how to do that safely, and how to do that without conflicts with other traffic, without conflicts with ground, without problems. The first thing that you think when you need to transport and deliver the defibrillator is you need to put it on the ground. But we designed the system to avoid landing with the aircraft in the location that needs the defibrillator. We are delivering with a crane or something like that. So you need to take into account all that, and because emergency operations happen in unexpected places, you need to have means of, I would like to highlight the first idea I put in my presentation. You need to provide the pilot and the operators ways to organize the flight in a safe way, but fast. Okay. Contention of the flight is paramount also. Okay, so I don't want to extend. I hope you have enough clues to ask questions now if you want. And if we have time, I don't know. Oh, sorry. So to conclude, what we are doing is to integrate UAS in our actual operations, and we think that it's pretty important to consider the operations from the UAS conception, and that the drivers for this kind of operation should be safety, the requirements, the operational requirements, and the functional requirements you need. And I have not talked about this, we have not time, but autonomy will be a key player, we think, in this field. You need to ensure that autonomous systems that do things by themselves are safe, but once they are safe, you will lessen the workload of the pilots and the operators that sometimes fail, because we are humans. So thank you.
Thank you very much, David. We have consumed our time and much more than our time, and as the majority of the speakers are around here, if you have questions, I invite you to ask them directly in the networking, because we are clearly our time, and I appreciate very much the help of all the speakers, especially the speaker who is in the telecom, and also to the attendees. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos por su asistencia, y como la mayoría de los asistentes están por aquí, pues invito a que se les reúnen las preguntas fuera de la sala, ya que estamos fuera de tiempo. Muchas gracias a todos.